Hello, Raven Shri here from Wild Soul Wanderings. Hello. I would like to share a tale with you about Coyote, trickster energy. A couple of months ago in early spring, I went on a 10-day vision quest to Utah. I had several high-level intentions that I was taking with me out on the road, and I knew that the land and the experience would inform me. I had just received this download from Spirit about a new art journaling inspiration to start, and so I laid down a couple of pages in that art journal, and I took that with me on this road trip quest. Another thing I was taking with me on this vision quest was this contemplation about how to emerge into the world from my isolation, from the pandemic, from this metamorphosis I've been going through that was led very much by the theme of death. And so I was heading out onto the road to see if I could find some energetics of life and of inspiration. I'm currently in year 6.5 of my 8-year Middle World apprenticeship. And many years of that apprenticeship took a very different route due to the pandemic. And so as I'm emerging from isolation into the world, I'm striving to remember my core vows and intentions and stay true to them, but open up to a new way, a new form, a new shape, a new energy of how I live them in these current days. My Middle World apprenticeship started before the pandemic, and I want to stay true to the overarching mechanism of this process. However, I also want to honor the current state of the day and age and of my own being and course correct as needed. And so that's what this vision quest was intended to illuminate me with. So that leads me back to some more specifics about my vision quest journey. Once I entered Utah, there was this series of events that really prevented me from dropping down in ways that I used to. I went to favorite locations and they were infested with people, loud, sloppy, drunk, angry people. And I didn't want to be around that. So I went deeper into the wild, into places that were 100 degrees with no shade, and I just went out into the rugged desert to strip away and walk around naked and be wild. And in that vastness of no thingness but me, people still found me. It was so crazy, and I've just found my frustration level rising, mainly as it related to the humans on the road. And I can just see this natural tendency that when I camp, I like to go out where there's nobody. And that might be a little counterintuitive to some of the principles I'm striving to learn in my Middle World apprenticeship, which is really around learning to love the wild animal of my species. And if I'm going to practice loving humans, I need to be around them. So this started like bubbling up in my being as I was on my vision quest, recognizing that I have a natural tendency to want to be away from humans, but this training program that I'm in right now requires humans as part of the mix of my teachings and trainings and evolution. I was recommended a location from a friend who's an ecotherapist. She's a teacher with Animus and other soul-infused, outward, wild program. So I had high expectations of the location that she recommended to me for my quest. And I went out there on the dirt road and I found it, and there was nobody there. That was the very thing I was looking for. But the place didn't feel right. It wasn't for me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was then that I realized that Coyote medicine was with me. Coyote was shaking things up and stirring things up and causing a ruckus. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go find a spot and I'm going to I'm going to have a conversation with Coyote. And so I found a sweet spot next to a river, and I created a page in my art journal around Coyote. I was like, all right, Coyote, Mr. Trickster, you're here. Let me honor you. You are the sidekick connected to the full energy in tarot. And I've actually been creating pages in my art journal around the Fool. So I find it very interesting that as I deepen my practice with the energy of the Fool, Coyote medicine makes its presence known so much more. And so I created a page around Coyote. And I will share that with you in just a moment. So I spent the evening next to the river creating art around Coyote, honoring that chaotic sense of life. And I woke up the next morning ready to head to my next location. I knew where I was going to do my drop-down vision quest. I got in my car and I went to use the map to get me from the location I was in to, the highways, to the maps on my phone to get me where I needed to go. And my phone died. It had this message on it. I rebooted several times. My phone was completely dead. So I went to a little town. They had one gas station and it was closed. So I couldn't buy a map. So I just went forward with no phone, no maps. Nobody knew where I was at. No weather forecast that I could plan my route around. I was doing this thing old school. Eventually, I found my way to the location that I had envisioned for my vision quest. I got there, I dropped down, I spent several days really in deep ceremony with very sacred land, and Coyote showed up every day. And in this space of being present with Coyote with no phone, no weather forecasts that could help me manage through the thunder and the hail and the lightning and mudslide, it was just crazy. And I stayed committed. I stayed in the vision quest. I stayed in the question, and I kept art journaling along the way. And there's so much more to the Vision Quest story that I may share in a future blog. But I just wanted to highlight that I went out into the wild, Coyote showed up as I was working on the Fool and really reminded me about the cauldron that's needed to practice and test and refine my skills in life. It's one thing to be theoretical and to have visions and intentions and ideals about how I want to respond to life and to the chaos it offers and to the challenging people and interactions that come my way. It's one thing to have ideals. It's another to engage those practices, to bring them alive into reality. And Coyote is a teacher to stir things up and say, oh, you think you're good at forgiveness? You think you're good at spontaneity? You think you're a good tracker? Think you're a good wild soul wanderer? All right, let's put that to the test. And a lot of times the tests don't show up in fuzzy, bright, rainbowy ways. They show up in mudslides and hailstorms and heartache. And that's where I get to engage the true mastery of my ideas applied in action and in manifest form, and how I show up in the moment. So Coyote came through and I was like, okay, I'm starting to get this download that this Hero's Journey art journal project is more than just an art project. This really is a master's level thesis program that I am living and writing and creating. I am taking ideas, applying them in life, creating art that represents them, and really mapping the hero's journey through the chakra medicine wheel as I go through that process. So Coyote shook up a lot on my vision quest, and I got so many pieces of reference inspiration for my living model. And Coyote is still in my life in so many ways, which is another story altogether. But let me share with you the page that I created about Coyote as I was preparing for my vision quest. And then as soon as I created this page, Coyote broke my phone. And I spent 8 days out there with no phone.
So here is the page I created on Coyote as I was camping next to a river in Utah, recognizing that trickster energy was coming in and shaking things up. And in many indigenous teachings, the fool is associated with trickster energy, often represented by coyote or raven medicine. Sometimes our new beginnings are a result of things being shaken up, oftentimes in ways we would not prefer. I absolutely love this page. I love Coyote sitting on the wheel of life there, and then there's this image of the shadow of me dancing on the journey of life. The trickster is known to bring in a little chaos, wreaking havoc on the hero's plan and ego, and in doing so causes the hero to learn an important lesson. Coyote's presence on my vision quest and in my life ever since is really offering me a magical makeover. And I absolutely love this image. Love, love, love. Coyote and Raven are known to cause a ruckus, to stir things up and set us off on a new adventure. So I'm curious, how is Coyote trickster medicine showing up in your life? And how are you engaging the fool in your response?
And since Coyote is a totem that I've danced with for many years of my life, I'd like to also share with you some photos that I've taken of Coyote in some of my wild soul wanderings.